I shouldn't even be telling you this. Honestly, I wish I could scrub it out of my memory completely, but that's the thing about sound. It lingers. It echoes long after the source is gone. And this sound, it wasn't just a noise. It was something alive, crawling out of my phone and straight into my skull. It happened late one night, maybe 2 in the morning. My apartment was dead quiet, the kind of silence where even the hum of the fridge seems deafening. I had my phone on the nightstand, screen face down. When it buzzed, the vibration against the wood jolted me out of half-dream. I remember groggily flipping it over, expecting some stupid spam notification. But what I saw wasn't a text. It was a missed call. No name, no number, just unknown. Normally, I wouldn't care. People get wrong numbers all the time. But then I noticed the voicemail notification. One new message. I don't know why, but something about that little red icon froze me in place. Like I already knew whatever was on there wasn't going to be good for me. Still, curiosity wins. It always does, doesn't it? So I pressed play. The first few seconds were nothing but static, the kind of hiss you get from an old cassette tape left too close to a magnet. Then, buried inside it, I heard a voice. Not a normal one. It was warped, bent, like someone speaking underwater through a broken speaker. I strained to catch the words, and for a second, I could have sworn it said my name. Imagine someone whispering it so close to your ear that you feel their breath on your skin, but at the same time, they're miles away, too far to ever touch. That's what it felt like. I froze, every hair on my body standing on end. My brain scrambled for explanations. Robocall glitch, prank, wrong number. But no prankster should have been able to say my name like that. Not in that tone, like they weren't just addressing me, but acknowledging me, as if they had been waiting. The message ended with a sound I can only describe as laughter, except it wasn't human. More like a child imitating laughter, drawn out and distorted, rising and falling until it bled back into static. When the voicemail cut off, I sat there staring at the screen, my thumb hovering over the delete button. My gut told me to erase it, to pretend it never happened. But another part of me, some darker, hungrier part, needed to listen again. I didn't know it then, but that was the first mistake. Because once you hear it, you can't unhear it. And to explain how this started, I need to go back to last week. Before the call started, my life was boring in the most ordinary ways. I worked a 9-to-5 job in a gray cubicle surrounded by the faint smell of burnt coffee and cheap carpet cleaner. My evenings were predictable. Heat up leftovers, doom scroll until my eyes burned. Maybe binge a show I'd already seen 3 times. The kind of routine that doesn't just lull you into comfort, it numbs you. I liked it that way. I liked the sameness. The world outside could be chaotic, violent, unpredictable, but inside my little apartment, I had control. Lock the door, close the blinds, keep the volume down. Safe. I don't think I realized how fragile that sense of safety was until it shattered. Every night, I kept my phone charging on the nightstand. It was habit more than anything, alarm clock, social lifeline, endless distraction machine. I'd scroll through memes, half-heartedly reply to group chats, then drop the phone face down and pass out. Nothing unusual, nothing worth remembering. But here's the part that sticks with me. Looking back, there were moments, tiny cracks in the routine that I brushed off at the time. A random flicker of the screen in the middle of the night, even though I hadn't touched it. My music app skipping tracks on its own. Notifications popping up, then vanishing before I could read them. I told myself it was just glitches. Old phone, bad updates, whatever. We all do that, right? We rationalize the weird stuff because it's easier than facing the idea that maybe something's wrong. The truth is, I'd gotten comfortable. Too comfortable. I'd sit in bed scrolling until 2 or 3 in the morning, lit only by that cold blue glow, and think nothing of it. I'd fall asleep with the screen still warm in my hand. My phone was the last thing I saw before I closed my eyes, and the first thing I reached for when I opened them. That was my life, safe, small, insulated. And that's what made what happened next so invasive. When the first voicemail came, it didn't feel like a stranger knocking on the door. It felt like someone had slipped inside, sat down on the edge of my bed, and whispered directly into my ear. The worst part? I can't shake the thought that maybe it had been there the whole time, watching me scroll, watching me sleep, just waiting for the moment I'd finally notice. The first time my phone buzzed that night, I almost didn't answer. I almost convinced myself to roll over and ignore it. Almost. The night it happened, I remember lying there in that strange in-between state, not quite awake, not quite asleep. The kind of drowsy haze where the smallest sound feels louder than it should. That's when my phone buzzed. At first, I thought it was just another notification. I even told myself I'd check in the morning. But then the buzzing stopped and was replaced by the faint chime that meant only one thing: voicemail. A chill went through me, though I couldn't explain why. I hadn't even heard the ringtone, just the vibration, just that misconnection. Slowly, I rolled over, squinting against the harsh glow of the screen. The call was listed as unknown. No number, no location, just a word hanging there like a warning. I tapped the voicemail icon. The recording began with static, harsh, broken, uneven. Not the kind of clean hiss you hear on bad connections, but jagged, almost wet, like someone dragging sandpaper across glass underwater. I almost backed out right then. But then, underneath the static, something formed. A voice. It was so faint, I pressed the phone tighter to my ear, holding my breath. The first thing I caught was the sound of my name. Not just spoken, drawn out, stretched like the syllables were unraveling thread by thread. The way it said it, I don't know how to describe it except to say it didn't sound like it was calling to me. It sounded like it was tasting me. I froze. My pulse hammered so hard I could hear it in my ears. Then came fragments, half words, phrases that didn't quite make sense. A cough that could have been laughter. A childlike giggle that broke apart into whispers. I couldn't tell if it was one voice glitching in and out or dozens overlapping, weaving in and out of the static. I replayed it, straining harder the second time. That was mistake number one. On the second listen, I caught something new. A whisper just before the static surged, low and deliberate. I see you. I almost dropped the phone. Every instinct screamed at me to delete the message, to erase it before it lodged itself deeper into my brain. But I couldn't. My thumb hovered over the trash icon, trembling, but I couldn't press it. Some part of me needed to understand. Some part of me felt like deleting it would make it worse, like I'd be ignoring a threat that was already standing right behind me. And then came the ending. The static cut down suddenly, like someone muting a television. For 3 long seconds, there was only silence. I thought it was over. My thumb moved to finally delete it. That's when I heard it. Laughter. At least, I think it was meant to be laughter. But it didn't sound human. It was warped, metallic, echoing like it was being played backward on a broken speaker. It started low, almost like a cough, then grew into something jagged and shrill, snapping up and down in pitch as though the caller was trying to mimic laughter but didn't quite know how. I remember shoving the phone away from my ear, heart hammering. I didn't even want to look at the screen. I just sat there in the dark, the sound replaying in my head, as if the laugh had infected the silence itself. By the time I finally checked the timestamp, my stomach turned. The message was exactly 33 seconds long. Not 32, not 34, 33. Precise. Almost intentional. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, my phone face down on the nightstand, terrified it would buzz again. And yet, despite everything, the nausea, the dread, the urge to hurl the phone against the wall, something in me kept replaying the message, over and over, like I was trying to convince myself I'd misheard it, that there was some logical explanation buried in the static. But each replay only confirmed it. The voice had said my name. It had whispered, "I see you." And the laugh, God, the laugh. I can still hear it now as I tell you this. At the time, I told myself it was a prank. Some idiot with a voice modulator, or maybe a robocall glitching at the perfect moment. That's what I clung to as dawn finally crept through my blinds and I dragged myself into the shower. That's what I repeated at work when my coworkers asked why I looked like hell. But deep down, I already knew the truth. No prankster could have made me feel watched like that. No glitch could have forced my heart to pound like prey, caught in the open. That voicemail wasn't random. It was for me. And worse, I had the sinking feeling it wasn't going to be the last. I told myself it was a one-off, a fluke, something I could ignore if I just powered through my day and shoved it into the corner of my mind where nightmares go to rot. But the thing about nightmares is they don't rot. They fester. The second call came 2 nights later. Same unknown number. Same late hour. I didn't answer. Of course I didn't. I just sat there in bed, staring at the buzzing phone, my body tense as a pulled wire. When it stopped, I let out a shaky breath until the screen lit again, one new voicemail. This time, I almost didn't listen. Almost. But almost doesn't stop curiosity when it's fused with dread. I pressed play. The static was sharper, harsher, like someone dragging claws across a chalkboard. My teeth clenched from the sound alone. Then, buried inside it, came the voice again. Except now it wasn't faint or accidental. It was clearer, stronger, deliberate. It didn't just whisper my name. It spoke it, slowly, like someone testing out a word they'd learned for the first time. Then it began listing things. At first, I didn't understand what I was hearing. Random phrases, scattered words, until it clicked. It was describing my apartment. The window, clothes, the cup on the desk, the shoes under the bed. I felt the air vanish from the room. My heart hammered as I turned my head toward the desk, toward the exact cup it mentioned, toward the shoes. I yanked the blinds shut, checked the locks, shoved furniture against the door like that would matter. But no matter how tightly I shut the world out, I couldn't erase the fact that whoever or whatever was leaving these messages could see me. The third call came the next night. I didn't even touch the phone until the buzzing stopped. My palms were slick with sweat when I finally opened the voicemail. This one was different. The static wasn't random anymore. It pulsed, rhythmic like a breath. And then, through that strange mechanical inhale and exhale, came something that froze my blood solid. It was my mother's voice. Soft, warm, the way she sounded when she used to read to me as a kid. But it was wrong, too flat, too slow, the cadence just slightly off. Like someone was trying to imitate her, but couldn't quite get the rhythm right. Don't forget me. That was all it said before collapsing into warped laughter again. I wanted to call her immediately, just to hear her real voice, to prove it was impossible. But I didn't. I couldn't, because some dark, gnawing part of me wondered what I'd hear if she answered. By the fourth voicemail, I was unraveling. It came at 3:13 a.m. I know the time exactly because I stared at the screen in horror, watching it light up in the dark. When I pressed play, the voice didn't bother with static this time. It came through clean, crisp. It said my full name. First, middle, last. Then it recited my address. Word for word. Then it said, "Come outside." I sat frozen, my chest tight, my throat dry. For a moment, I thought I'd imagined it. But no, the words were still echoing in my head, burned there. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. I just stared at my locked door, half expecting a knock, half praying silence would hold. When nothing happened, I convinced myself it was just a sick prank. Maybe some hacker spoofing numbers, digging up personal info to scare me. But deep down I knew, hackers don't imitate your mother's voice. Hackers don't breathe through the static like they're standing right beside you. The calls didn't stop. Every night, like clockwork, the phone would buzz between 2 and 3 in the morning. Sometimes the messages were nonsense, gibberish, half words and languages I didn't understand, strange tones that made my skin crawl. Other times they were razor sharp, personal, cutting. One message said, "You shouldn't leave the light on." Another, "The knife in the kitchen drawer is sharp enough." I stopped sleeping. I couldn't. Every night, I sat there in the dark, phone clutched in my hand, waiting for the next buzz. It wasn't just fear anymore. It was obsession. Each voicemail felt like a puzzle piece, but the picture it was building was one I didn't want to see. And yet, I couldn't stop myself from pressing play every single time. You want to know the worst part? Sometimes, I swear I could hear myself in the background. Faint, breathing. Like the call wasn't just coming to me, but for me. I thought the worst thing it could do was call me. I was wrong. At some point, fear gives way to desperation. You can only sit in the dark, clutching your phone like a cursed object for so many nights before something in your brain snaps and demands answers. That's where I was, exhausted, hollow-eyed, and ready to claw through any explanation, no matter how thin. I started simple. Phone records. Logical, right? If someone was calling me, there had to be a trace. But when I checked my call log, every entry just said unknown. No numbers, no locations, No timestamps beyond the generic missed call. Like the phone itself had decided to erase the source. I called my service provider next. The poor guy on the other end put me on hold 3 separate times before finally coming back with a clipped response. "Sir, we have no record of these calls in our system." He suggested I reset my phone, maybe run a software update. I almost laughed, like an update could fix a voice that knew what was under my bed. Next, I tried calling back. Stupid, I know, but paranoia can twist into curiosity when you're desperate enough. Each time, the call wouldn't even ring, just silence, then an abrupt drop, like dialing into a void. I thought about going to the police, but what would I say? "Officer, my phone keeps leaving me ghost stories." At best, I'd get a pamphlet about phone scams. At worst, they'd put me on a watch list for wasting time. So, I did what any modern idiot drowning in fear does. I went online. Hadjichi, obscure forum. Threads buried so deep they looked fossilized. I typed phrases like creepy voicemail, unknown caller, and voice message says my name's static. Most of what I found was nonsense. Campfire tales, bored trolls, copy-paste creepypasta. But hidden among the garbage were little flashes of recognition. Posts from people describing exactly what I was going through. The static, the laughter, the personal details. They called it different things. Some said it was a government experiment leaking through broken signals. Others claimed it was a spirit that traveled by sound, riding dead air like a parasite. One post, written in a jittery stream of text, said it was a listener, a thing that couldn't speak on its own but borrowed voices it overheard. That one chilled me most because it ended with a warning. If you hear it, don't answer. Don't engage. The more you listen, the closer it gets. And here I was, listening to every message on repeat like a junkie. The deeper I dug, the stranger it got. A handful of users claimed the calls were contagious, like the thing behind them spread through retellings. They warned against posting recordings, against even describing the messages in too much detail. One account swore their friends started getting calls just from hearing a voicemail secondhand. I wanted to dismiss it, chalk it up to online hysteria. But then I noticed something that made my skin crawl. Several of the threads I bookmarked disappeared. Not deleted by users. Vanished. Links that redirected to blank pages. Entire conversations wiped clean. Almost like someone or something was scrubbing the internet. That's when I realized I wasn't just imagining patterns. I was in the middle of one. I closed my laptop, heart hammering, convinced my search history had already marked me somehow. The room felt smaller, heavier, as if the silence itself was pressing against me. And maybe it was the exhaustion, maybe paranoia, but I swore I felt my phone buzzing in my pocket, even though it wasn't. Like the calls weren't waiting for the right time anymore. They were bleeding into the in-between moments, seeping into me. I'm telling you all this now, because if any of you listening have had this happen, if your phone has buzzed with that same unknown number, I need to know. Leave a comment, send a message, anything. I need to know I'm not alone in this. Because the worst part isn't the static. It's not even the laughter. It's the silence in between, when I know the next call is coming, but I can't stop myself from waiting for it. And one night, I didn't just wait. I answered.
I don't know what pushed me over the edge. Maybe it was the sleepless nights, the endless replaying of static in my head, or the knowledge that no one out there could explain what was happening. Or maybe it was something darker, a pull I couldn't resist, like the voice had been grooming me for this moment all along. Either way, the night came when I didn't let it go to voicemail. It was 2:41 a.m. I know because I watched the digits on my clock shift, my phone already in my hand. When the vibration started, it didn't jolt me this time. I was waiting for it, thumb hovering over the screen. For the first time, instead of freezing in dread, I slid my finger across the answer icon. The line clicked open. For a moment, there was nothing. Just dead air, thick and heavy, like holding a seashell up to my ear. My breath caught in my throat, every nerve screaming that I'd made the wrong choice. Then I heard it. Not static this time. Breathing. long, uneven, ragged breaths, as if the caller's lungs didn't quite know how to function. Inhale, exhale, wet, broken, too close to the mic. "Hello?" My voice cracked. My heart was hammering so hard I thought it might drown out the sound. The breathing stopped. A silence stretched so long I thought the line had died. Then, low and deliberate, came the word I dreaded most. "You." It wasn't said like a greeting. It was said like a recognition. Like the voice had finally found what it was looking for. I tried to hang up, I swear I did. But my thumb hovered uselessly over the red icon, frozen as if it didn't belong to me anymore. The voice came again, clearer now. "Don't hang up." It said it with such certainty, such command that I obeyed. I didn't even question it. My throat was tight, my chest buzzing with adrenaline, but I stayed on the line. "Who are you?" I whispered. "What do you want?" There was a pause. Then, as if mocking me, it repeated the words back in my exact tone. "Who are you? What do you want?" Hearing my own voice echo out of that phone nearly made me drop it. I pressed the speaker away from my ear, but the sound felt like it had already crawled inside me. "Stop it," I hissed. "Stop!" It laughed. Not the distorted machine laughter from the voicemails, but something smoother, more practiced, as if it had been studying how to laugh and finally gotten it right. Then it said something that rooted me to the spot. "Look behind you." I couldn't. Every muscle locked in place. The air felt thick, electric, like something was crouched in the corner of the room waiting for me to move. My voice broke. "There's nothing there," the voice answered, almost gleeful. "Not yet." The phone slipped from my hand and clattered onto the floor, but the line stayed open. I scrambled backward on the bed, staring at the dark doorway of my room, expecting something, anything, to step through. And then, faint but unmistakable, I heard another sound on the line. Not static, not breathing. Footsteps, slow, deliberate, crunching over what sounded like gravel. But I knew the floor outside my room wasn't gravel. It was hardwood. The steps grew louder until they stopped. Right outside my door, I couldn't breathe, couldn't blink. The silence pressed in, suffocating. Then, soft as a whisper, came the voice again. "Open the door!" I snapped. I hung up, hurled the phone across the room, and curled into myself, shaking uncontrollably. I didn't sleep. I didn't even move until daylight finally bled through the blinds. When I retrieved the phone hours later, the call log was blank. No record of the call. No trace it had ever happened. But I know what I heard. And the worst part? That wasn't the end of it. Because that night, when the phone buzzed again, the voice didn't sound like it was just talking to me anymore. It sounded like it was talking through me. After that night, something shifted. It wasn't just fear anymore. It was a constant hum under my skin, like static in my blood. I'd catch myself staring at corners, doorways, reflections, certain I'd see something move just out of frame. Sleep became impossible. Even when my body gave out and I drifted off, I'd jolt awake minutes later, heart pounding, convinced someone had whispered in my ear. The next voicemails proved I wasn't imagining it. They stopped sounding like recordings. The static was gone. The voices were immediate, like live feeds from somewhere impossibly close. They didn't just know where I was, they knew what I was doing. One message arrived while I was brushing my teeth. I hadn't even left the bathroom yet. When I hit play, the voice said, "Don't spit it out." My hand trembled, toothpaste foaming in my mouth, staring at my own reflection. Another came as I was pulling on a sweatshirt. "That color makes you look afraid." I stopped checking the mail. I stopped answering texts. Every time I moved, I wondered if I'd hear about it later from that thing on the other end of the line. Then it started predicting things. Not big events, little things. Mundane details. It would say, "You're going to drop the glass." And a minute later, I'd knock a glass off the counter. Or, "Don't open the blinds." And when I did, a crow would slam against the window, wings flailing before it tumbled out of sight. Coincidence, I told myself. Has to be. But deep down, I knew better. It wasn't just watching anymore. It was steering, nudging, waiting for me to notice. I began unplugging my phone at night, turning it off, stuffing it in drawers, even leaving it in the freezer once just to see if it would help. It didn't. The calls kept coming. Sometimes I'd hear the faint buzz, even with the phone powered down, like a phantom notification crawling under my skin. Worse, the voice started slipping into places it didn't belong. White noise on the TV, the hiss of the shower, a faint echo in the hum of my fridge. Not words exactly, but the shape of them, like the memory of someone speaking right next to you. My apartment, my safe place, felt invaded. I kept the blinds drawn, the lights dim, every creak of the floorboards a gunshot in my nerves. But no matter how tightly I shut the world out, it still found a way in. The day I truly broke was the day it told me something I hadn't done yet. The voicemail arrived at 2:12 a.m. I pressed play with numb fingers. The voice, calm and deliberate, said, "When you wake up, you'll be standing at the window." I wasn't at the window. I was in bed. I laughed, a dry, humorless sound, because I thought it had finally made a mistake. Then I blinked, and I was standing at the window. I don't remember getting up. I don't remember moving. I just remember the phone pressed to my ear, the city dark and silent outside, and my own reflection staring back at me with wide, glassy eyes. That's when I understood. It wasn't just calling me anymore. It was inside the room, inside me, and I had no idea how to make it stop. At some point, terror mutates into fury. I couldn't keep living like a puppet strung along by voicemails and whispers. Every time my phone buzzed, I felt my stomach lurch, my pulse spike. Enough. If I couldn't stop the calls, I could at least erase their proof. So one night, with shaking hands, I opened my voicemail inbox and hovered over the delete all option. My thumb pressed down, and for a moment I felt a flicker of relief. Gone. Erased, just pixels and data, nothing more. But when I refreshed, the messages were still there. All of them. I tried again. Delete, confirm, refresh, still there. Except longer. The timestamps had changed. Messages that were 30 seconds were now 45. Ones that had been a minute stretched into 2. The static thicker, the voices clearer. It was like the more I tried to erase them, the more they fed on it. I went one by one, deleting each individually, cursing under my breath. And for a moment, the inbox cleared. Blank. Then the screen flickered. Every message returned at once, stacked on top of each other like duplicates, dozens of them, filling the screen until I had to scroll. My own name repeated over and over in the preview text, like the voicemail transcription app had been hijacked. Lines of "I see you, I see you, I see you," stretching endlessly down the page. The air in the room grew heavy, electric. My lamp flickered, shadows jerking across the walls. My phone grew hot in my hand, almost too hot to hold, the battery icon plunging from 80% to 20 in seconds. And then the new message came in. buzz. I didn't answer. My thumb hovered, my breath caught in my throat as the notification burned on the screen. Unknown. One new voicemail. I tapped it open. This one was different. No static, no distortion. Just silence at first. Then, very softly, the sound of footsteps. Slow, deliberate, approaching closer with each beat. And then, as if mocking me, my own voice came through the speaker. "You can't delete me!" I hurled the phone across the room. It hit the wall with a crack, the screen shattering into a spiderweb of glass. For a moment, I stood there panting, convinced I'd finally silenced it. But then, faint, muffled through the fractured speaker, came the sound of laughter. That broken, jagged laugh that had haunted me since the first night. The phone lay face down, screen glowing in the dark, buzzing again. Every message I erased came back, but changed, hungrier, and I knew I couldn't run from it anymore. I'd have to face whatever was waiting on the other end. The night of the final message didn't begin differently. No storm, no flickering lights, no sense of impending doom. Just me sitting in my dim apartment, staring at the fractured remains of my phone lying on the coffee table. It buzzed. Of course it did. I should have ignored it. Should have left it there like a corpse. But curiosity, or maybe inevitability, pulled me in. With trembling fingers, I picked it up. The screen was cracked but still lit, fractured lines of light spidering across the glass. One new voicemail. This time, I didn't hesitate. I hit play. At first, nothing. Silence so thick I thought the file was corrupted. Then, slowly, the faint sound of breathing. Not ragged like before, but steady, measured, calm. And then a voice. My voice. "You've been listening so well." I froze, hearing my own tone, my own cadence, but not my words. It was worse than any distortion. It felt like something had peeled a layer off me, stolen the part of me I didn't even realize could be stolen. "It's time," the not-me voice said. "Time for what?" I whispered, as though it could hear me. The reply was immediate, echoing in the speaker like a teacher correcting a child. "Time for you to see." A sound followed. Footsteps again. Not distant this time. Not on gravel, not on some imagined floor. They were inside my apartment. I spun, heart thundering, but the room was empty. The voice continued, calm and almost kind. "Don't look for me." "Look at you?" The phone's screen flickered, then lit up with the front-facing camera. My own reflection stared back at me, fractured by the broken glass. Pale skin, bloodshot eyes, fear written all over me. Then the reflection smiled. I didn't. It tilted its head, blinked slowly, raised a hand. I watched in horror as the figure in the glass lifted its phone to its ear, perfectly mirroring me, except I hadn't moved. And then, through the speaker, the reflection spoke in my voice. "This is the final message." My chest seized. My hand wanted to drop the phone, but I couldn't. The thing in the reflection leaned closer, the cracks in the screen making its face distort into something jagged and inhuman. "You've been such a good listener." The apartment around me seemed to fade, the air thickening, shadows bending inward. My reflection's lips didn't sync with the words anymore. Its mouth opening wider, too wide, until the edges split into black static. "Now it's your turn to speak." The screen went black, dead. The apartment plunged into silence. I thought it was over until the phone buzzed. Again, hard enough to rattle against the table. The display lit up one last time. Recording. No contact name, no number, just the red dot blinking. It wasn't playing me a message. It was making one. I tried to throw it, to smash it, but my body wouldn't obey. My mouth opened on its own, my throat tightening as a sound forced its way out. Not words at first, just static, raw and broken, like my vocal cords had been hijacked. Then syllables formed, spilling out of me in a voice I didn't recognize, a voice that wasn't mine anymore. The phone captured everything. My own possession, my own unraveling. When the recording stopped, the voicemail app blinked. Message sent. To who? I didn't have to ask. Somewhere, someone's phone would buzz at 2:41 a.m., and they'd hear me. I don't know why I'm even recording this. Maybe it's guilt. Maybe it's desperation. Or maybe I just want someone to believe me before it happens again. Because if you've made it this far, if you've listened to every detail, I need you to understand something. This isn't just my story anymore. The final message wasn't an ending. It was a transfer, a passing of the signal. And if you're hearing me now, then you're already inside the circle. You've heard the words. You've given it time, space, attention. That's all it needs. You probably think I'm exaggerating, leaning into theatrics for effect. That's fine. That's what I would have thought too. But I promise you, the voice thrives on disbelief. That's how it slides past your defenses. And when your phone buzzes at night, because it will, you'll remember this. You'll stare at the screen, heart hammering, and you'll wonder if it's just spam or a wrong number. And you'll hear me in the back of your head whispering, don't answer, but you will. Everyone does. That's why these things spread. Not like viruses, not like curses, but like curiosity. The itch you can't help but scratch, even when you know it's going to bleed. I've told you everything I can. The static, the voice, the messages that rewrite themselves. I've confessed what happened when I listened too closely, and now it's your turn. Leave a comment if you've ever gotten a call you couldn't explain. If you've ever heard your own voice when no one else was in the room. I need to know I'm not the only one, but remember, once you speak, once you share, you've invited it deeper. You've given it a doorway, and if your phone buzzes while you're typing, don't say I didn't warn you.